The average man in America has less than one true friend. In 2023, the Surgeon General said, "We are facing a loneliness epidemic." I want to change that. You don't have to be alone. Dude, you need a friend. A friend who can help you make better choices, move with more of who you are, and live a better, fuller life for yourself and the world around you. I believe we can change the world if we can change friendship. This is the 7 Daily Choices Friendship Project Podcast, and that's what we're doing. Hey, everybody, I'm so excited to bring you today's podcast with my friend Clay Parrett. And to call him my friend is a surprise. I am so thankful that God does not leave us as we are. As Clay and I grew up and matured in Christ, we were reunited when we were a little bit older, and we were able to unite through Christ. Even though when we were younger, we just didn't get along as well. We weren't necessarily friends. But now we are, and he's one of my closest friends. And I'm so glad for what God has done in his life and continues to do in his life, and what God has done through him in my life as well. So be blessed as you listen to my gentle, kind, loving friend, Clay Parrett.
First of all, Clay, it's so glad to have you with us. And if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself, um, and what you do and who you are, and a little bit about your life.
Well, okay, you know all this, but my name is Clay Parrett. I've been in full-time ministry since 1997. Actually, before that, because that's when I came here in the church. I've been here at the church on staff here at Christ Church of Yukon for 26 years now. 26. I beat the average, and
Yeah.
and before that, I was a full-time youth pastor up in Terre Haute, Indiana, after I graduated Bible college. I've worn all sorts of different hats here. I was the first full-time youth pastor the church ever hired. I don't know if you knew that. And then I was family pastor, and now the last several years and through COVID, I'm the lead pastor here. But one of my favorite titles is husband to my wife, Jennifer, of 25 years. We've got a 20-year-old who is a second semester junior at Wichita State University now. And then our youngest is our 16-year-old who just got a car and just wrecked it. And so life is filled with excitement and challenges, but it's good. And I know we'll talk more about this, but in the seasons of life, the seasons in ministry and in the church, there are different seasons. And I've been around long enough to see a lot of different seasons. And it's been good. So that's me.
Yeah. All right. So here's the first question, and this one kind of got me every time. So I'm gonna try not to cry. I don't know if you had this happen. I turned 50. I became a baby. That happened to you?
Yeah, yeah. It's for
So,
real.
um, but what do you remember about the start of our friendship? Because we met long before we were friends. So
You
what do you
know,
remember?
well, that's really interesting because as I was reflecting on that, as you sent me the questions, I was thinking, you know what? I knew who you were at Ozark, and but we were more acquaintances and stuff. But I think we really connected when we were in the trenches after college in ministry, and just and at the heart of you is to encourage people and come alongside and encourage. And I'll talk more about that specifically as we go along. But you really came along and encouraged me in some difficult moments in ministry.
Mm. And I remember, we got back together at Moreland, Oklahoma, which,
Oh wow, yeah, church camp,
wow, yeah, church camp. That's where we met
middle of
Chris.
nowhere, middle of
Yeah,
nowhere.
middle of nowhere. Yeah, MON. That's where it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
wow. Because I can't say the other letters. My wife got mad at me once because of what they mean. The B, that one. So anyway, middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
MON, and we had not, again, we hadn't, in college we knew each other, we were around each other, we even did a couple things together, a couple trips together, but I mean it was all right. I was an arrogant jerk in college, and needed to grow up, and I think you did some growing up too, and between us, we came back together as grown-ups, and God had moved in both our lives, and there was a new connection, and
Yeah.
it was so cool to experience that new connection. And then, like you said, challenges come, and you stay in. You just
Well,
stay in.
well, yeah. And when a lot of people we probably graduated with have thrown in the towel for one reason or another. And I think some are probably legitimate, certainly for family. And as I was talking to my friend yesterday, Dal, I said had a very honest conversation. I said, man, and I think you'd have my back and agree with me on this. I told my friend, your marriage is more important than locationally where you do ministry. And I believe that with all my heart. So, but I don't, looking back, I don't remember you being arrogant. I remember you being confident. I remember me being a mess, but that's all right. That's all right.
Well, good. I remember you being confident, so
Okay,
that works out.
okay, got
I do remember we liked all the same girls. Um,
it.
so
Well, let's just leave that there.
and neither of us married any of
That's right. We we
them.
both we both married up, and that's
That's right.
important.
That's
That's
right.
right.
We stayed at it. So, so if you were to look back, you were going to pick one memory of our friendship that you go, this is what I remember. It was the best moment. What would you say that is? What do you think that
Well,
was?
it's hard to land on just one because there are many conversations, many moments that I was probably in ministry in a cloud, in a dark place. But there was one time, and I know you'll remember this. Um, we met in Joplin, Missouri, at a park, and we talked, and you went out of your way. Your wife's family, Ann's family, I think, is up in Moberly. No, no,
Mount
no,
Vernon.
no,
Mount
Mount
Vernon.
Vernon. Okay. And you came down and made a special trip and you took an afternoon because you knew I was struggling. And, it was just as several years ago, it was difficult moments in the life of the church here. And you and a couple others, I was very intentional with reaching out to people like, what do I do? Um, what do I do consistently? You talked about being consistent. What do I do consistently just to be faithful to the Lord and to love people, even in difficult moments? And so I think that day I still remember, and us. I think we shared a meal together at the park, and I took notes, and we were just talking and just encouraging and praying for me and with me.
Mm.
How about you?
Uh, well, for me, I remember, um, again, there's several key moments along the way, but I remember when we met back up in Moreland, you were leading worship, and there were some moments that week, um, that stand out to me as moments that things shifted completely in my thinking, and you may not even remember them all. Things like, well, first of all, when we met, the love that you exude now, and it just flows with God and glows with God, and I was like amazed. I was just astounded. And then, and then I remember one moment we were talking about, um, which scriptures, which Bible I recommend, what version. And I was like, well, I'm okay with different versions. I kind of try to avoid paraphrases, and it's
Yeah.
okay. And you went, yeah, but if a kid's gonna read that or a comic book about killer ninjas, which do you want them to read? And I just crumbled. And now I tell people, hey, what do you want them to read? I use your line all the time about the Bible. If I can give a kid a Bible he'll read, I don't care. If he's reading the story of Christ, I don't care anymore because I'd much rather him read the story of Christ some way. And I gave out one of those comic book Bibles to somebody where
Yeah.
it's the action story, and someone was like, "Yeah, but don't you think they should have the real Bible?" I said, "Hey, they're gonna read something. They're gonna read something. Let's let them read this, and then if you want to take them to a good version of the Bible, we can do that. But
It's a start.
not
Let it be a
bad. Yeah,
start. Let it be a
yeah.
start, a
Let it.
connection point. And I wholeheartedly agree, Dow. I mean, so many people are intimidated about it. And even the way I approach sermons on Sunday morning, messages on Sunday morning. We can no longer assume that people know the people, places, events in the Old Testament and or
Right.
the New Testament. I agree with that. And so I just want to, I don't want to assume.
Yeah.
I want it to be relational and applicable, practical, but that's kind of my heart. Yeah.
Yeah. And that just exudes out of you. And that was one of those moments where you were thinking more about the kid than about the theology. And for me, that was I mean, it was dramatically changing for me. Think more about the person than about, a rule that we think is saving people. One is Pharisaism, one is Jesus. And it was great for me. So that's just one. I mean, again, we have plenty of stuff I can go back to. I love visiting your church. I love that moment in the park. I love how we have made an effort since then to stay connected and take care of each other and be there for each other through
Yeah.
all the stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think it takes intentionality, like you said, and that
yeah,
consistency and stuff. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. I think whenever I reached out to you during that difficult time several years ago, I reached out to my old preacher, Randy Garris. You know Randy, and I think the world of him. And I remember one time I was talking to him on the phone from down here, and I was in this sanctuary, and I was just like, Randy, what do I do? And he said, Clay, do two things: preach Jesus and love people. Preach Jesus and love people. And I was like, okay, Randy, I'm taking notes. What's the third thing? Preach Jesus and love people. And man, that just it's why do we try to overcomplicate it, you know?
yeah,
And I tend to, but it doesn't have to be that way.
yeah.
So
Now you've made the effort to reach out to some other pastors in your area and be there
yeah.
for them in kind of response to that. What do you think it is that causes you to reach out to a certain guy versus someone else? What's kind of your parameters, or what do you feel like brings that about? What guys do you reach out to? What are you looking for?
You know, if I was going to land on something from the question you just posed was, I think, humility. And the reason I say that, because sometimes we put on this facade of how big's your church? You know, do you do it well? You know, and just be honest. I haven't told you this, but a couple of weeks ago, I was at a ministers meeting, ministers luncheon, and you'd know some of the names that were sitting around this table. There were 7 or 8 of us, and we went to school with several of them. Several of them were Dallas Christian College graduates, and there was this air of, okay, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that, and then one guy just said, "I'm struggling." I'm struggling. And he told me some specifics of his struggle. And let me tell you, Dow, he's struggling. He's going to have an uphill battle. But he kind of dropped his guard and was just honest. And I was just telling him, I said, where we were about 4.5 years ago, financially, as far as unity, everything and stuff. And then I got to tell him where we are now. And he said, where you were, that's where I am right now. And I said, be encouraged, be encouraged. God can change things and people. And so it was, for me, it was that humility down that he just said, man, I don't have it all figured out. We're just trying to follow Jesus and encourage one another. And I felt like there was a surrounding and we can just be ourselves, you know, it was really
I
cool.
was Yeah, I was going to ask what happened to everybody else. I mean, did
Well,
they drop their guard?
the ones that are at our end of the table, yeah, absolutely. And it was good. We kind of came around him, and I'm looking for opportunities to encourage him. And um, anyway, it was really really good.
That is fantastic because that's one of the key principles, that I teach. Vulnerability is that first step to every friendship. You-
Yeah,
The first person who chooses to be vulnerable wins.
you're right. You're right.
So
And I guess maybe, you know, going back to, we're getting older, and it seems like, you know, we don't take some of those things for granted that I once did, because man, every moment is a gift. Every day is a gift. And um and I want to live that way.
yeah, yeah. So how do you work to make new friends? In your role, it's a little different. So how do you do that?
Boy. Yeah, that's a that's a hard question for me. I think in the church, it's I say a little easy and it's a little difficulty. It's easy. I'm a people person, you know that, Dow. I want to people charge me up. I tend to be an extrovert, and being a studious introvert. I know you know what I mean by that. Is difficult. I have to force myself to do that. But a friend of mine in the church, one of our church leaders, he could study God's word 6 hours and he would be great. I need to study about an hour and a half and then go be with people. That's just kind of how I'm wired that way.
Yeah.
But so I think being intentional that way and putting myself out there. However, it's that title of pastor that sometimes people I think are intimidated by, or what, or have certain stereotypes or stigmas in their mind now, and I like to break those down, because at the bottom of the day, or at the end of the day, I'm just a follower of Jesus, trying to do the best I can, not do the best I can, but to be the best I can in him, and to keep my eyes on him.
Yeah. So so have you, I mean, how many, if you were going to say I got guys I call in the middle of the night and I trust them with whatever secret, how many of those are you? Do you have?
Now say it again, the question,
If
I'm
you were
sorry.
going to call somebody in the middle of the night and trust them with your deepest, darkest secrets, I need somebody to help me bury a body, kind of thing. How many you got?
10.
That's awesome.
6 to 10. I mean, the burying the body might be a little bit, but
Well,
yeah, I think I- I've I think, Dow, I keep going back to this word, but being intentional. And I do. I mean, I feel like I could call you, and the list could go.
yeah.
I've got I've got several guys that I could do that.
Can I just tell you, this is part of where we've connected because there are so many guys in the world, Clay. The average American man has less than one, less than one
That they can call it anytime during
that
the.
they could call at any time and count on. That's why I'm doing this. You and me, we're, and think about that. If the average is less than one and you have 10 and I have nine and I have another list of 12 I could probably call, but we need more time. Those guys, they need our help to go, how do I make one? How do I get one? And you probably have these guys. Do you have these guys in your life who will tell you, Clay, you're my best friend, and in your mind you think that's sad?
I Yeah, maybe so, maybe so. I don't know if you need to put that on there, but yeah, I'm very blessed that way. And to me, I had a buddy of mine, and I'll say a name, and you'll know who it is. Tarek Moore, remember from Ozark? He
Yeah,
he told me, he said, Clay, you're the type of person that you go in and you want to make sure everybody, is good and go visit and stuff. I want to land in a corner with just a couple people and just chill right there. And to me, yeah, but cultivating that. And that goes back to being vulnerable, Dal, and realizing, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking about grace. Man, I'm a grace guy, Dal, because I've experienced God's grace in my life.
right. Yeah. It's, and it's such a fascinating thing when it plays out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you see it move through you. And when I say it's sad that I'm their best friend, it's not because I don't think I'm worth that. It's because I know what a best friend looks like, and I'm not that to you. I'm I'm good to you. I'm a friend to you. I'm kind to you, but I'm not that. I'm not giving you my heart. You're not. I don't know your dark secrets. I'm not showing up in the middle of the night for you. I'm just here, and I'm the best thing you've got. Man, that's not good.
Well,
That's not good.
you need to meet some new people then, is what I'd say. And I don't think there's any better place than in a church, in a healthy context, that you should have that. See, well, thinking about you and our friendship, whenever I would call on the phone, or whenever we were in the room and I was talking to you, I was the only one in the room.
Mm,
And that takes vulnerability, that takes time, but that takes intentionality. And I think a lot of guys, they have these guards up, and we've got to drop the masks. We've got to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. and do that. But yeah, I remember that about you. Yeah,
Mm, awesome. All right. So I know we didn't cover everything. You've also got we got a time here. I want to make sure we stay inside of.
we're
I don't
good.
want to miss
We're
that.
good.
Is what would you tell guys who are struggling to maintain friendships? What would you encourage them? How would you encourage them to maybe start? Where would you go with that, you think?
Well, where would you go? How would you start? I think connecting in a local church, not attending, but connecting and belonging and dropping your guard a little bit. Get around a group of men who are putting themselves out there vulnerable. Not saying that they're going to cry at the drop of a hat. I'm not talking that about vulnerability, but just saying, hey, man, I haven't got it all figured out, and be a part of a small group. I was going to bring this up because I think it fits in this context of this conversation, but I'm a part of a group that meets once a month that is going through presently Point Man, How a Man Can Lead His Family by Steve Farrar. Powerful book. And man, it's so good now. And the guys are just, they're admitting their struggles. How can we pray for one another? These conversations, are going on. And one of our newer guys that jumped in said, I'm an alcoholic and I'm struggling. And we surrounded him and prayed for him and said, man, we're here for you. And just said all these intentional things and meant it. And he's just been kind of rejoicing. He's like, man, I haven't had a drink in I don't know how long it's been, but I almost said his name, like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and he's doing good. He's wanting to be the spiritual leader in his home now. And it's awesome. It's really
So,
cool.
so get outside yourself, is what you're saying. Go
Absolutely.
find a group of men to be with. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it happens a lot easier for our wives. They sit around a table and they just talk for an hour and a half. And they're like, they come home, oh, that was just so wonderful. We talk. Well, if you stick a bunch of guys around a table for an hour and a half, that'll be torture. Go out there and do something, get in a men's group and go golfing, build those relationships. I went golfing with a group of guys a while back, and man, just we were talking and having good conversation about God and family and stuff like that. So make an effort, be intentional.
Those it's also interesting. This keeps coming up. So, as I'm doing these interviews, this keeps coming up. Guys need something else to focus on so they can talk to each other. You know,
Yeah.
give me a golf club and I'll open up. Give me a burger and I'll open up. Give me a fire in front of me and I'll open up.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
good. That's right. I think that's right. I really do, man.
Yeah. Put a hammer in my hand next to you building a house in Mexico. And yeah.
Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, don't isn't the old saying, women bond by talking and guys bond by doing. We want to
Yeah.
go do and experience that and stuff. And so do the girls, I mean, obviously and stuff, but we can't speak to that.
Well, we're not as good at it. I will say that. I preached on this week before last or something like that, and I was talking about lock and shields, and I got to share about you guys being there for me, which was really cool. But but I was telling him, ladies, you know, I can talk to you about this because I think unfortunately this is becoming a problem for women more and more. The loneliness epidemic in America is has increased to, I mean, the when the Surgeon General says it's an epidemic, it's an epidemic.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but women are increasingly becoming more and more separated. And I think it partly has to do with, we're spending
I,
too much
I
time
agree.
fake relationships, not enough time with real ones. Um, but but guys in particular, like I have this dream, Clay. I just shared my dream here. I don't know if I've shared it on any of the other interviews or not. Here's my dream: guys start joining together with guys, so less guys leave their homes, so more marriages and homes are saved, so less children grow up without the dad around, so those young girls feel more confident in themselves, so that when somebody tries to take advantage of them relationally or sexually, they just say no. And then because they have that confidence, the men and the boys raised in there understand what it takes to take care of a woman. And not only do we have the relationships drop as far as, or the tragedy drop as far as broken homes, but sex slavery goes down and pornography loses its way. And just because guys stepped up for each other. I mean, can you imagine the difference we could make? It's just so I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, as you should be. And I think you're saying some of the same stuff that's reflective in this book, Point Man, that
Yeah.
he uses this analogy. I think you've read the book now. We've talked about it before, but he uses this analogy of about the point man in the military, goes through these difficult moments in war, and they run point and stuff in this battlefield, if you will. And then he transitions beautifully and he says, friends, we are in a battle for the souls of our kids and our families, and we are to run point. And it's
Yeah.
really, really cool. And so, yeah, I think that's so right, Dow. It's so right.
Yeah. You know that he passed away about a year and a half ago. But he's got so much material out there guys can go get. Steve Farrar is great for helping men. And for years he led a men's ministry where he just taught through the Bible
Yeah.
again and again. So well, hey, I'm gonna get off. Not only do you need to go, but my family's walking in, so my quiet moment is over.
Uh,
And I know you got to go, brothers. Thank you. If you could leave one last thing for men, what would you like to leave men with today as they're listening to this conversation about friendship?
I think be honest with yourself. To take a good long look in the mirror, and no matter what you've come from, whether family context, lack of role model, whatever it might do, that you can change, you can lead. But you have to be intentional and surround yourself with people that are going to sharpen you and challenge you and hold you accountable in the best way.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, brother. I'm gonna let you off the hook. Thank you for all your time. Thank you for being here. We will probably talk to you again about this, but let's make a plan to get in touch with each other here in the next week or so. All right.
Absolutely. Sounds good,
All
brother.
right.
Down.
Love you,
Take care.
brother.
You too,
See
man.
ya.
Friendship is hard. It takes intentionality. But with intentionality, it becomes a joy and a strength in your life. So listen, let's be friends.